Logos Media's UnSpun, episode number 206, season 14, episode 2. This is Hans' 49th time, I think, on the show, possibly 50th. I think it's 49th. Last time, Hans, you were on for the 12th anniversary show, and then the next morning they deleted my whole main channel. So we'll have to be more PC this time, I guess, but... and
let's start out with,
my channel was 14 years
okay.
old.
Okay, Jan, let's start out with, Oracle. I'm into oracular things now, right? Predicting the future through, you can cast the tea leaves.
Yeah.
Um, and there's the I Ching, where you cast the yarrow stocks or the coins and you get hexagram. And so one thing in Iran, actually throughout the sort of Persian world, I think even in Kazakhstan is a fault. There's a poet Hafez, right? So this amazing poet Hafez. So Fale Hafez means you ask a question, right? You have a question in your mind, and Fal means like casting the runes or whatever. You think of a question, and then you open up the book and you get an answer, and it may be esoteric. So I've developed something. I bought this book in a train station in Delhi. No, actually in like somewhere in Uttar Pradesh in India. So
You didn't have Deli Belly that day, did you?
I did not. No. So think of your question, and then we'll just get an answer. Just give me a question.
All right. When will the Let's Go Brandon campaign be successful?
One of the highest duties of the movement is to make this principle imperative, not only with its own ranks, but for the whole state. Because of this principle, okay, human progress and human cultures are not founded by the multitude. They're exclusively the work of personal genius and personal efficiency.
That's pretty funny, dude.
Yeah. Well, one more question,
All
and then
right.
I'll reveal this. Okay, I'll ask a question. When will I achieve greatness? Oh my God, this is effed up, dude. If for a period of only 600 years, those individuals would be sterilized who are physically degenerate or mentally diseased, humanity would not only be delivered from an immense misfortune, but also be restored to a state of general health, such as present we can hardly imagine. If the fecundity of the healthy portion of a nation should be made a practical matter in a conscientious and methodical way, we should be able at least to see the beginnings of a race from which all those germs would be eliminated,
Wow.
which are today the cause of our moral and physical decadence. Okay,
All
so my
right. That's enough.
oracle,
That's enough of that.
following what? Following Mein Kampf. All right. Okay.
Enough.
All right. That was funny. No, it wasn't.
Uh, yeah.
So
You're,
uh,
you're,
we're
you're,
we're
you're,
not
you're
live.
trying to get. Yeah, we're live, dude. We've been live for like 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
I told you we were live.
Well, Dion, let me just positive note, right? In all the darkness around us, these particular modes of fashion or hair have not come back, and so I just
Yeah.
wanted to share this as a
Well,
bit of
we've talked a lot about on the show over the last what happened. We've talked a lot on the show over the last couple of years, Hans, about how the Nazis were leftist socialists, and there's such an effort by academia and the mainstream media to shut down that fact. This guy Teak Tik on YouTube. He's done a number of shows exposing Hitler's socialism, leftism, and how like the definition of fascism is actually international socialism and unionism, whereas the Nazis were national socialists. And so many people today are duped into thinking that that the Nazis, the Nazi fascism, if you can call it that, or National Socialism, was American capitalism. And then they've spun that on to the right and the Christian right. Never mind that Baron von Sabotendorf, who founded the Nazi Party, was an Islamist, and so all of that got blamed on the Christians like usual. But so you came up with an interesting title for this episode: Endgame, Schizmogenesis, and neural networks. So what's that all about?
Jan, I just have a title, man. I thought you had the show. I guess we're done. No. So yeah, this is sort of a response. I mean, of course, you guys, I know you did a show on that. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to watch it, but there's this term mass formation psychosis is really being coming out a lot, and because of the Joe Rogan interview, and it reminds me, I guess, of the proliferation of certain terms or phrases or things like entrainment is one example that people use the term entrainment. They don't understand entrainment. They don't know what it means. They use it in a certain way that because it has a very definite meaning that's associated with, actual anything from biophysical processes to anything in nature, right? It's a process of phase locking, which you can extrapolate that to maybe meaning susceptibility to propaganda, but that's not what it means, and you're leaving out a whole range of depth. So the mass formation psychosis thing, which is coming from a lecture from I believe a professor in Belgium. I couldn't find that clip because I'd seen it a number of months ago. But basically, what does that mean? I mean, it's there, but then how do we understand this formulation of mass? We call it insanity. What does that mean? What is insanity? And in a certain way, I'm interrogating this idea of these terms, Hegelian dialectic, right? That is now obviously problem reaction solution is a real process. What does it have to do with Hegel? Nothing. Maybe you'd say it does, but it's not even really that's not really a dialectical process. There's and that's an example of a type of shutting down. Like you get a bit of knowledge. Oh, I know this, and it's framed that you have these terminology, and then what actually you do is, or one can do, is that this thing is like shipped around, bandied about, becomes sort of a physical object of meaning. You end up losing the real sense of what's behind it, and then it opens up the whole thing to being ridiculed and mocked or whatever. So, but I wanted to actually look in my own way at what is going on with the schismogenesis, right? Which is from Gregory Bateson's term of generating this state of schizophrenia. What is this sort of schizophrenic, which is very analogous to the LSD experience, right? So, when we talked about this stuff in the past, I never thought I would live to be in the full, they just hit the on switch
Yep.
for everything.
Yep.
And now you can't escape it. I mean, I wish I could, go back to my hot tub and, my lines of cocaine and my babes in bikinis and just forget about all this. I can't. No, I'm just kidding. I don't, that doesn't happen in my house. I have a very, very strict wife. So I have a pretty, I'm sort of like, I live like a saint or a monk, but, so I just wanted to, just go into this and give a few different interpretations and see how this is not only the, the, you know, the mass formation, right? Because again, that term, you say mass formation psychosis. It got stuck in my head too. It sounds like mass formation psychosis means that, you have a group of people, you're going to make them all psychotic. Actually, no, it means this process of massification, of losing your individual identity, right? In this sort of a collective mass or mass consciousness or movement. Go ahead, John.
Oh, well, I was just going to. There was this funny meme the other day that I came across. Here, I'm just going to show it here on screen. Mass formation psychosis is quickly becoming a new far right buzzword, and it's
Oh,
yeah,
and I just
and
that's
of
why I think
course,
that.
and it's like Joe is a shill for the left to begin with, but you have, and it's one of these NVP or NLP memes, but because all of the mainstream media then goes out the next day and repeats it over and over and over that it's a right wing thing because one guy said it. Now everybody believes that it's a right wing thing, without even thinking further about it.
Yeah, and that's why I started out with that sort of, who knows why I decided to do that. I just because I forced my wife to like or put my books in alphabetical order. She did one bookshelf, but I had that copy of that book. But right. So this is Jan. That was totally insightful, and this is exactly not only. Here's what's going to blow your mind, which kind of blows my mind a little bit, is that it's not only a way of shutting down the actual dimensions of this massive psychological operation, right? This massive, you know, operant conditioning times 10 with all these other levels, creating even just the masking, social distancing, which I'll get into. These have major effects, especially with children, et cetera. Okay, that's going on. But now that whole thing has been turned into a joke, and now it's a far right meme, right?
Yeah.
But what is going on is actually the process of schismogenesis. And what is at the root of this? The creation of schizophrenia is actually, at least according to the Macy conference attendees, according to like sociological generation of schizophrenia, which is actually the analogous to the LSD 25 state, right? Crowd control. So this is everything we're talking about with the mass culture. But this terminology, what you have is a rupture in meaning. You have, we'll get into this more deeply, but I mean, because this is a big thing, but schismogenesis is where your toolkit, right? To refer to the external world and your internal sense of it gets this schism, right? You get this sort of, dichotomy. You have terms change their meanings. Terms, your whole way of forming reality gets sort of flipped on its head, and then you have this intensive subjectivity, and that's schismogenesis. Which, like I said, that probably didn't make much sense, but we'll get into that how that works. But that's exactly what this is. You have mass formation psychosis. This term itself is generating with the way the meanings are flipped around.
Yeah.
What's
It's
happening?
generating the schizophrenia in and of itself.
It is, because what we have, and I'm gonna just drop some stuff. I should be getting I want at least $50 to say this. $50 donation.
Anybody
Come on,
want to throw up a donation?
come on. I don't even have any beer,
Hey,
man.
yeah. Well, look, and I'm still dealing with this freaking branch in my ceiling. Everybody see that branch sticking out right there? See that
Well,
branch? See that? Lovely, isn't it?
yeah. No, I'm actually, it may not seem like it. I've actually been really sick here for a week. I still feel like total crap. And I'm in sob right now. In sob, there's incels, right? You know what that is? Insob means involuntarily sober. So I'm I'm an insob, man. I'm fucking I want to, in this, but see, that term creates clarity. Insob. Hey, you know, insob. But yeah, that's
Well,
exactly.
and one thing, like in my article in Theogens, What's in a Name, that I published in 2014, I exposed how psychedelics create hypersuggestibility. And then, what Steve Jones and I have been discussing, I don't know if you caught last week's show, but looking at how, and I was looking right at it too, but they were remarketing schizophrenia or psychotomimetics to mimic psychosis. They're remarketing them into a mind expanding and religious experience when it's really a psychotic experience. So that's part of this whole thing. And then on top of that, the drugs create hypersuggestibility in the takers. So, it's a two-pronged approach where they're pushing mass manipulation and hypersuggestibility and schizophrenia at the same time.
Exactly. And this is something that, we don't, okay, we can get into the other factors, right? One thing that, okay, this is my $50 term. Dude, where's my money, man? $50. Come on. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just surviving here. But okay, externalization of the central nervous system. So our nervous systems have been rewired into our electronic media world. Okay. It even Pokemon Go, that was exactly what we're living in now. The Pokemon Go shows we did, back when that was happening, that is exactly, I mean, that was a beta test for COVID, and one of the many, the corona, right? The crown of the Kilophant, the crown of the Kilophant, the rule of Satan on earth, the complete subjugation of all humanity. That we're almost through all the stages of this inverted tree of life. We're almost at the final, spear of that,
Yeah.
basically. But um, sorry, I lost my thread there. So the
Well, the
corona
inverted tree of life.
inverted tree of life. So this is um, there's so many factors, right? But our nervous systems are turned out, right, with social media in a certain way. The experiential state, right? The LSD experience, that psychedelic experience, through the constant actual entrainment, right? The entrainment of the music around us, right? You look at the music, we can go to in the video, but we also go into just the rhythms, the social media, right? So our
So
nervous,
all of that is becoming what you and I exposed, what, 5, 6, 7 years ago in the Music, Mind Control, Psychobiology series. But they're expanding it out from music to the whole of the cultural system. Is that what you're getting at?
yeah, yeah. And let's see though, this is where the words and the meanings are so central, right, to this process. They discovered, see, the double bind, right? That's not actually the causal factor of schizophrenia. That is, you have a process, someone says one thing and means another. That happens to anybody. I mean, that whole thing is cover
Fallacy
for,
of equivocation.
yeah, it makes people think, oh, it's a double bind. Well, the double bind, the catch 22, anyone can experience that at any point in their life and not become schizophrenic. What creates schizophrenia, or part of it, is this destabilization of the inner map of reality, the external, and this constant shifting of meaning and how we interpret the world or not
Right.
interpret it, right? And this is
Well,
Pavlov's.
this is the new normal. They told us, which was a Rand Corporation term. I did research on that. They had created that term in like 2003 or four or something like that, and had it parked on the shelf ready to go. And now you notice for the last 8, 10 months they totally quit using that term, and then just creating this new reality that is, and it's the denial or the schism from reality is what causes schizophrenia.
Exactly. And so the cybernetic model, right? This is what has been deployed, right? And let me just read a bit. This is from the original text. This is cybernetics. Um, okay, so this is
Yeah, I have that book sitting.
circular causal and feedback mechanisms in biological and social systems. That's exactly what we're seeing. Circular causal and feedback mechanisms. So circular means what? We have our loops, right? These are loops, these are closed systems. These are, and then feedback mechanisms. but these are causal. So that means to inject something into the society. For example, injecting mask wearing, okay? Injecting that. And then you create feedback mechanisms, biological and social systems. That's what we are. We're biological, cognitive, I'd say spiritual as well. But so one of the fundamental things is this language and meaning. And I'll just read a bit here. Again, this is from QB in communication between sane and insane. Um, so here we go. Quote, um, early in life, however, something of great importance happens to the development of the symbolic representation of abstraction. Later in life, the same thing can occur in the process of falling asleep, in the process of waking, in the dream itself, and in the hypnagogic reverie to which we are subject from early childhood. In these states, symbols become primarily visual rather than verbal, probably because they had originally been predominantly sensory and visual before they were verbal. These symbols represent more than one thing. They are multivalent. Furthermore, under certain circumstances, a symbolic representative becomes dissociated from what it represents. That's what we're talking about. Symbolic representative becomes dissociated from what it represents. And these are encoded either in early childhood or in, dream states, liminal states between sleep and dream, hypnagogic state. What's a hypnagogic state? It's when you watch your television. It's when you go on your electronic device. It's when you go into social media. You're entering into a trance state, right? You're being transcoded, and your nervous system is being externalized into this electronic media, right? We go further. Okay, the symbols are multivalent. Furthermore, okay, becomes dissociated with which it represents. And psychopathology starts with this dichotomy. That is, with a dissociation between the symbol and what it represents. Let me read that line again. These symbols represent more than one thing, however. They are multivalent. Furthermore, under certain circumstances, the symbolic representative, so in this case, symbolic representative, which means that this, that means like say the term, right? We have our term mass formation psychosis. That's our symbolic representative. Okay, that's our symbol, which is tied into images, is tied into whatever. Um, okay, becomes dissociated from what it represents. So it doesn't mean anything now, right? It means it's a right wing catchphrase on one side. Then it means also probably a lot of people think, oh, this is a way they make a bunch of people psychotic at the same time. Yeah. But actually, it means that there's a mass formation. People are connecting to a hive mind or a group mind. But anyways, okay. Furthermore, under certain circumstances, the symbolic representative becomes dissociated from what it represents, and psychopathology starts with this dichotomy. That is, with the dissociation between the symbol and what it represents. It is my working hypothesis that the neurotic potential, out of which everything that is neurotic in human life and human behavior develops, arises precisely here. This is universal because we have not yet discovered how to avoid or limit this fundamental and basic dichotomy in early life. Okay, so
that's the cybernetics book.
Yeah, yep, page 120, I believe.
Oh, I'm just wondering where I put it. Anyway, I'll have to pull that one out again. Steve Mercer says, a world full of floating abstractions.
Yeah, but really what's going on is that, so our sort of our mode, our experiential selves, right, who we are, is connected, linked, grounded with the way we see, understand the world with our minds, we experience it with our bodies, the way we have our, we call primary experience. There's primary and secondary experience. So I'm using these models, right? Just like Kurt Lewin, pronounce it right, another $50. Just kidding. Um, okay. But so in that same way, these things have kind of people don't talk about this stuff anymore, right? I mean, I'm sure people
Except
know
right
about,
here on this show.
yeah, schismogenesis. This is what is happening is creating schizophrenia, but it's mass schizophrenia and it's massification in we call it's not even well, of course we have this all this stuff is ongoing like real time. We have our riots, right? Our BLM riots.
Yep.
We have our our social distancing. I'll go into the psychological effects of how you interact with space, how you interact with other people, and what that does to your brain. These things, they seem small, but they can cause psychosis. These are looked at as early childhood factors in the generation of schizophrenia.
So
Um,
what we're going to see in 10, 15, 20 years is a massive explosion in adult schizophrenia and psychopathy.
well, I think we're living in it. I think it's already happening. I think that this world,
What about when the masked school kids grow up though? You know, after they've been forced through that trauma and conditioned to wear this stupid mask to be safe from an invisible monster.
yeah. Well, this there are. Let me just. I'll show you something like real quick. Okay, this is like goofy, but it's not goofy. What the fuck? It's good for your brain, right? So you go like this, left hand, right hand, touch your earlobes like this. Left hand over right
Oh
hand. You
yeah,
go eyelids,
yeah.
eyebrows, and then you do your lips. Then reverse. Boom, brain reset. Just that connects all these different neural pathways. I mean, I feel great right now, man. That was free. Um, Come on, guys, give me. No, I'm just kidding. I don't care about money, man. This lighting makes me look like one of those black-eyed babies. The mute.
It's just got a little bit of red tinge from the reflection off the walls. It's all right.
Okay. I hope people don't think I'm like a lizard person or something. I saw
Well,
Han.
David Icke was, if we had him on, you'd be a lizard.
But so we've hit so far just a few points, but these are I think very important. Is that okay? So what we have is sort of so the original thing, which is actually a really good presentation by this psychologist talking about how what's going on, right? This behavior process. One aspect being free floating anxiety, and so you get to attach it to something, but then we have this sort of the formation of the collective of the hive mind, of the group mind, but very particular and essential point must be understood. So the group mind, the hive mind when you're out there riding, like Jan, I'm sure you're out there with the BLM. Go BLM. I was out there, throwing Molotov cocktails, whatever,
Well,
man.
I think aren't professors and whatnot kind of required to participate in that stuff?
Oh yeah, man, it's fun, man. They bust us out there. They gave us a little line of meth, a little toot of meth. Go. No, I'm just kidding. I stayed inside. It was an interesting period in time just to go. I like going to kind of dangerous areas sometimes. So I did kind of circle around. It was, I'll tell you the truth. Like I didn't, I was like, heck with that. I'm not going to go into that space.
Yeah, I didn't go out at all into that stuff.
Yeah, but that's a kind of a mass formation, right? Where you have a rioting crowd.
Yep.
What we have here is a mass formation with a total process of the individual being closed off, right? So the schizophrenic becomes trapped in their own symbolic, misrepresentations. The schizophrenic is essentially trapped in their own mind, right? But so you're basically in this prison of your own mind. I got this friggin' Adobe update. I don't know why that came. But so it's like, but there's still a mass, right? So this is a communitarian, the communitarian social, which is really, it's a disembodied social, but yet it is embodied in the in the edicts of this community, which usurps the individual. You're no longer an individual. Your individuality is your sort of your inner mind, right? And that's where we go in the neural nets. And I'll show this video clip. But
And
so it's a
that's
math.
what humanism is, isn't it?
Yeah. But this is what's really interesting. It's you're generating schizophrenia, which by its very definition is where the individual. It's what Jerry talked about when we did our,
Yep, laying the dead to rest
yeah,
series.
he said in the future we'll all be connected to virtual reality. We'll wear these suits and we will have sex with people that we don't even see. We'll create our own languages, our own music, all in our heads. Then we can interact with other people in our totally imaginary virtual worlds. This is the future that they want for us. But it is a mass formation because you're joining this collective, this dissociated, disembodied community, which is like community guidelines, community standards, YouTube, Facebook, everything. Community. What is that community? The community is this non binary, dissociative world where you are electronically, permanently put in this purgatory of and just regurgitate your own fantasies while your base consciousness is completely pre-programmed because you're just part of this hive. So any individuality you have is just simply the reflections of your basically your mind bouncing off this prison shell. This is like everybody's becoming like the Ewan Cameron, patient. This is this research with not, you don't have to give everybody LSD. You don't have to do it with attaching electrodes in people's brains. You do it through the media. You do it through social interaction.
So, that just made me realize. So, who, Hans, created the personal computer and all of this stuff? Who was behind that? You had all of the merry pranksters. James Fadiman created the PC mouse. You had who was it? Not Bertrand Russell. Was that? I don't know. I've got other books back here behind me who came up with the idea for the personal computer. But you had all of these MK Ultra people that actually were working on the Stanford Research Project, et cetera, to create the personal computer. So they must have seen the schizophrenia and dissociative effects of the drugs and then thought, hey, let's create a machine and then we'll network these machines together that cause this same dissociative schizophrenic effect. I mean, because how else would you have such an overlap between the two? And then you had Dr. Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, whom they did their experiments at Harvard on, and then he comes out and tries to blow everybody up for doing this stuff. And then he writes his Unabomber manifesto trying to expose it all. You see where I'm going with that?
Oh, absolutely. And this is, the one thing that I have to say is that, I mean, since this started, right? I don't know if we did, the COVID thing, or Corona, right? So Corona again means crown, right? The crown. But this is where solve a Caligula, right? This is the alchemical processing of humanity to the final stage of just being, complete robotic slaves to being basically human sludge or being whatever, and the rule of Satan. But this on these us, which is not the elites. The elites, of course, through this process are going to ascend to the highest, where they become God. And this goes into the AI, the whole AI universe. This metaverse is their crown, but this happens through this inverted, that picture of the guy, with the two tree of lives, and one is up, and so we're in the inversion. So this is what is occurring, and it is exactly
it's out
coming.
of Manly Palmer Hall's book, for those who are wondering.
Yeah, it's exactly coming out of this research and all these different projects. And it, the funny thing is that it's, you know, now we can talk about, remote neural manipulation, voice to skull technology, different frequency stuff. I mean, that is going on for sure to a certain extent in different areas. Um, but here's the thing is that, to do that, when you target a large group doing that, you risk, you know, it, you can have people break out of it. It becomes very, you can target an individual person. But this is a way to do it almost without, you use the music, you could do it. It's like you don't need invasive surgery. You can tweak it and add your ELF, extremely low frequency weapons or whatever. But people do that to themselves. You create the title of that book, causal, circular feedback mechanisms. You're right. You have causal mechanisms and in feedback loops. You basically the population starts doing it to themselves. Once you start the process, you just what I mean, and it's happening before our eyes, and it's so amazing. So but it's there's so much material on this stuff. Like a lot of this research has been forgotten. This is another great book, The Hidden Dimension, Edward T. Hall. I'll just read a quick quote here. Um, there is a general relationship between the evolutionary age of the receptor system and the amount and quality of information it conveys to the central nervous system. The tactile touch systems are as old as life itself. Indeed, the ability to respond to stimuli is one of the most basic criteria of life. Sight was the last and the most specialized sight to develop in man. Vision became more important and olfaction less essential. Okay, so basically, what they're doing is using. So what we have is primacy, right, of this visual um, space, right? We're reducing tactile interaction. We're reducing social interaction. Our sense of identity in physical space is being removed, and then we mask, right? We hide our faces. This has a huge effect on the brain. This has a huge effect on how you see other people. This has a besides the physical, breathing
Oh,
in your poison oxygen.
right. Well, yeah, and I had done a whole thing on that, but there was a paper that I had found, and people can look this up. Increasing the CO2 intake actually increases fear. You have, I forget the article now, and I wrote a paper on it. I posted on Facebook, and it was up for several weeks, and then all of a sudden one day they gave me a 30-day Facebook jail, even though it had been up for several weeks. But in fact, let me see if I can find that paper, and you can go ahead and take over while I look for it here, Hans.
Yeah, well, this it hits so many different levels or areas, right? But one of the things is that
Sorry, I just found it. Sorry, it's my article is why mask wearing is anti-science, anti-health, anti-logic, and child abuse. And then let's see. I got all of this stuff in here about how kids wearing masks they test the masks and they're hideously dirty. But then there was this study. Um, Hold on. Oh, geez, where the heck is it? There's this study by these couple doctors who found that. Oh man, I've got the paper here, but I'm just looking for the. Oh, Adam Zyman and Jason Allen have shown that the amygdala is a chemosensor that detects carbon dioxide and acidosis to elicit a fear response. What they have seen over the last year, what have we seen over the last year but an increase in fear? Coincidence? But, so this reduction in oxygen intake from people wearing a mask and breathing their own waste back in is actually increasing the amount of fear that people have.
Well, that ties in perfectly because this is exactly what I was going to look at. Crowding and okay, this is looking at the generation of stress, and so let me just read this real quick here. Um, so it is possible to speak of vital needs as payable in sugar, for which, so this is a chemistry of stress, right? And so what's this is affecting the endocrinal system, the organs, right? The hormonal system, right? Central nervous system operation. These things are, this is why it's analogous to something like LSD, right? What this is doing. So real quick here on stress. So this is a metaphor for stress. It is possible to speak of the vital needs as payable in sugar, for which the liver acts as a bank. Routine withdrawals are handled smoothly by hormones from the pancreas and the adrenal medulla, which acts as paying tellers. But the top level decisions, whether such as whether to grow or reproduce, are reserved for the bank's officers, the adrenal cortex and the pituitary glands. Stress, in Stiles' view, amounts to an administrative flap among the hormones, and shock results when the management overdraws the bank. And it goes, let me just finish this here. If the banking model is gently dissected, it reveals its first and most important servo mechanism, a remarkably bureaucratic hookup between the adrenal cortex, acting as a cashier's office, and the pituitary as the board of directors. Infection and injury are common forms of stress, and in direct and controlled inflammation to contract them, the cortex draws cashier's checks on the liver. It keeps going. But I think it's interesting, of course, using the metaphor of banking. But look at that. I don't know if that made sense, right? But these hormones, so we have our pituitary, which is where's the test going, right? Our pituitary and our olfactory, right? Right here behind the, you know, by the nasal cavity. So this is basically destabilizing. It creates, this is as he says, it's a what's that term again? Um, it's a servo mechanism. So it's a servo mechanism that is a servo mechanism of the body, right? So we're being mechanized, we're being robotized, we're getting this stimula, right? The mass humanity has been so, say, through the music, through all the cultural stuff we did, now through social media. Now it's going real time with this entire operation, full scale on the entire population, and trying to permanently change humanity forever, right? This is not a, you know what I mean? This is not a, this is
Aldous
like,
Huxley's final revolution, as he called it.
yeah, yeah. So we can come back to this and get more into the neurochemistry and all that because it's pretty complex. But do you mind if I let me just show this clip here, which I thought was really fascinating, and we can see sort of our future, right, as it's envisioned. And this is by one of the top technology companies. So it's not me, this conspiracy dude freaking out. Wait, where's my link? Hold on. Okay, here we go. And so wait, da, 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 doing all kinds of
Well,
weird
but
crap.
Hans, all you have to say is the word or the term conspiracy theory, and then, the audience doesn't have to listen anymore. So you and I, we're conspiracy theorists, right? So therefore, anything we say is debunked by your typical person.
Come on, dude. Okay, so you can see
Yeah,
this, right?
it's up. Yep.
Okay, so we have synergizing 5 tech domains. This is about 6G. Okay, 5G's convergence with cloud AI computing, so application will accelerate digitalization of all industries and pave the way to a digital society. With this, without this convergence, 5G, 6G cannot proceed. Now let's just check out this video. So, wait, so this, Okay, let me go to this video. Where's my video here? On this page. Let me get this. Okay, here we go. So check this out.
Radio communication turned its first page when Marconi transmitted the first radio signal across the Atlantic. With the endless frontiers of wireless, spanning 5G, we start wondering what 6G would be like. 6G will serve as a distributed neural network for future intelligence of everything. Network sensing and native AI will become two new usage scenarios to fuse the physical, biological, and cyber worlds, leading to an era of connected intelligence. 6G will provide universal high-performance wireless connections with speed comparable to optical fibers. Terabits per second peak data rate, up to 100 gigabits per second user experience, and sub-millisecond level transmission latency will enable truly immersive human-centric experience. Further integrating terrestrial and non-terrestrial networks, we can see.
Well, let's cut that off because, I don't want to get dinged for going over 10 seconds there on the share.
Okay.
Because if you play more than 10 seconds of something, they're gonna jump on me and they're gonna delete the whole dang video, dude.
Well, it's an advertisement commercial video, though. Do you think that will?
Well, I don't want to test it. Thank you, Jonathan McIntosh, for the 20-pound donation there, and thank you, Boru. Much appreciated.
Let me cut this share screen off here. I'm still sharing, right? Okay. How do I end share? See, and then am I still sharing the screen?
No.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So, well, what do you think about that? And it goes further.
Well, what gets me is what makes these people think that all of this is such a good damned idea? What makes them appeal to their own authority, their own self-appealing ad verecundium fallacy that we should all be going along with this plan, and then they're forcing it on the entirety of humanity at the same time. It's ridiculous, and they have no idea the greater impacts, and and these people, Gates, whatnot, what's his name from Google, they probably won't even participate in it themselves. What do you think, Hans?
Yeah, why would they? I mean, it's, basically this. So, I mean, what we have here is that, it's not, the thing is that the generation rate of this, so we have a mass formed, right? We have, because of this threat, we have all this fear, all this stuff, destabilizing, mental stability, creating, and then you have actual vectors. You have the vaccine, you've got mask wearing, you got graphene in your masks, you've got all this stress, you've got economies collapsing, you've got, divorce, alcoholism, suicide through the roof, right? Now you want to activate the embodied, implanted neural network control grid where your consciousness is basically fused into this permanent virtual reality. It's like a permanent sort of Pokemon Go that's interpolated, over the actual world. And then, you can, it's a prison. You'll never be free. It's like your mind is trapped in this, and then with the schizophrenic break, where you can no longer access primary reality, right? You're completely lost in your own inner subjective symbolic stuff. Your words don't connect with anything. Your sense of the world and action in that world is severed. And then your tactile, you're very important for your neurological, your self-well-being is your interaction in the spatial environment, interacting with other people. That's all being shut off. You have just only a visual primary stimulus. You're basically being regressed back to the womb, right? Yep. It's like a de-evolutionary process with cybernetic servo mechanisms. And then they're going to turn on this network, and those, I'm going to swear, No, I stopped myself because I said that. Okay, these motherfuckers think they can control everything that you do and see. They're going to look out from your eyes. You cannot even have a private thought. And the 6G, which is not mentioned in this video, I'd love to show more of it because it's showing how social interaction is actually powered off of. It is literally a biocomputer. It is, John Lilly talked about the biocomputer. It's powered, every human being becomes a living biological cell for the 6G. So we become transmitters and antennas. What it feeds off of: negative emotions, stress, anger, fear, rage, depression. That's what powers 6G. Believe it or not, I'm sure. And then you have your external inputs, of course, from your satellites and everything else. But it is literally like a parasitic invasion of human consciousness and human biology that they want to be permanent. That's why I use the word endgame. It literally is the end game. This is the end. This is the permanent rule of Satan over man if this happens. Because Satan, in fact, is the dissolution of real life, of nature, of natural impulses, of the virtues of the higher self, of the higher expressions, right? It, you know what I mean? It's, you see that as, you go through, the sort of, you can do the occult path or whatever, but you go through, you gain this power in the world, but you're becoming bestialized, right?
Yep.
Now, of course, as happens in all the occult organizations, the ones on the top are feeding off the bottom, the cattle at the bottom. But I don't know what you think about that, but it's amazing that this is even happening. I can't believe this is mainstream, man. I mean, this is they want this to happen by in the next 2 or 3 years. Will it actually happen? I don't know. But what are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, I think you're right. You can see it, and I think that the 60s counterculture, psychedelic revolution, everything that we spent the last decade exposing. I mean, geez, you came on the show the first time in 2009, Han, so over a decade ago.
That was different, dude. That was when we were both in the zone,
Yeah. when we were both woke, right?
Yeah, we're woke and we're doing shrooms and
Well, yeah, and now it's like, well, when you and I were doing the Music, Mind Control, and Psychobiology series, I started, sitting there editing those shows for hours a day, day in and day out. And looking up, putting in all of the citations and everything. It was hard not to see all of the satanic stuff in there. And then I started going, well, if these people are Satanists, which they obviously are, then, what was I missing here? And people are like, you don't actually believe in Satan, do you? And it's like, well, it doesn't matter what I believe. They are acting on it, And that's the main thing of all of this is, these people are creating this satanic overmind or hive mind for Aldous Huxley's final revolution, where they enslave humanity for the last time, You gonna say something?
Yeah. No, I'm just I'm
zoning out.
No, I was meditating on.
Well, and thanks to Lee and Boru, Jonathan, Matthew, and let's see, Giuseppe and King Ravana, all for your donations during this episode. I hugely appreciate that. So go ahead, you chime in now.
Yeah. So this, like I said, we can get into a lot of details to understand how this happens. But when you look into it, what happens? For example, we have the disabling of the frontal cortex, right? It's our ability, action, agency. All this is being diminished. And so the generation of this schizophrenia through the Schizmogenesis, right? Through this destabilization of meanings. I mean, look at, look at everything. Look at the critical race theory. That's a perfect example. That completely, there is no more reality, right? We're in the postmodern world where you create your own reality through your own imagination. Um, and let me just show this movie trailer real quick. I'll keep it short. Unfortunately, we couldn't. This stuff, though, the commercial stuff, they ding you on copyright for that too, huh? You get the copyright ding even for.
Well, I just don't want to get the copyright ding because
Okay.
they'll
Yeah,
take the damn show off or whatever. I just don't want to risk it. Anything that goes over 10 seconds, you're risking.
Okay. So let me just play this real quick here. A part of it. This actually was set in Ohio. Believe it or not.
Superhero's alter ego, like Peter on 2, sitting here in my top.
I'm just trying to get to that. Okay, let's see. Okay, here we go. Yeah, so I should have about short clip of this. So here we go.
All
Check
right.
this out. This is
Share screen.
so when this movie came out, right? I definitely watched it because, like I said, it was the Spielberg thing. And movie is
You gonna share screen?
Yeah, it should be sharing. It's not sharing. Oh, here we go. Okay, share, and then here we go.
But he died when I was a kid. My mom too. And I ended up here.
Columbus, Ohio, yeah.
In my tiny corner of nowhere. There's nowhere left to go. Nowhere. Except the oasis.
Jeez. Except the oasis. In other words, go into the transhumanist world. Wow.
Look, whole virtual world.
And they got their Depeche Mode and your Back to the Future car, DeLorean.
Can you feel this? Yeah. It's the only place that feels like I mean anything.
Jeez. Wow.
It's a holiday. Oh, if you're watching this, I'm dead. I created a hidden object, an Easter egg. The first person to find
Okay,
the
well,
egg.
So
anyway.
here, listen to this. Steve Mercer, and thanks for the 5, Steve. He says, Corona is the sun rays, Delta is the triangle, Omicron, the 15th letter, is the circle, the all-seeing eye.
Yeah, well, notice and if you noticed in that 6G, you have this triangle, right? This pyramid
Yeah.
going into people's brains as people become fused into the metaverse, right? That's what this metaverse is. So the metaverse is, you can check out Ray Kurzweil talking about this, right? So every single object, the IoT, Internet of Things, the IOB, Internet of Bodies, right? That's what this is. So everything, they want to incorporate everything into this vast AI supercomputer.
Yeah.
This is how they create God. So this is, when I say satanic, it literally is, Luciferian, in that they're going against nature, creating nature.
Well, they're creating an inversion of nature to trick everybody or to mind control everybody into thinking that this AI transhumanist world that they're creating is the real reality. So it's an exact inversion. They're literally inverting the whole world, and they're trying to pull us all into this transhumanist world. And who created the term transhumanism? Julian Huxley, Aldous Huxley's brother. Yeah. And so it's...
We're sorry to interrupt, but yeah, so I don't forget, so we did that Kilophot, which is super interesting, but you look at this inverted Kabbalah, so, when you get to the highest sphere, which is, the rule of, Satan over the lower humanity, which is what we are, well, the elites get to live in the real world, right? The full paradise, they have the whole world. Everyone else is, in their AI infused, completely controlled, prison where you can't even have your own thoughts, and you can't even see the world around you anymore. You just see what's, programmed and how you interact, everything track traced, total surveillance, complete remote manipulation. They can just flip the switch and you're dead. I mean, and what that is what is planned for us as we, and it's not that far off. And they've shown the feasibility because it's almost that you can actually almost create this anyways, right? Without even turning on the remote, bio computing neural nets and all that stuff that enfold in the body, go into your DNA, go into your interstitial fluids that turn you into this big transponder, and your body is wired into the machine, and it's just like they can tweak it and do whatever they want. I mean, most people, I don't think it doesn't probably work properly. That's why most people are dying, but that's the future. That is. And then one part of this is you take all the sparks, right? All the divinity, all the joy, all the creativity. You extract all of that from the lower humanity, right? As you bestialize humanity in your alchemical process, right? So the mages, right? The sage, what do you want to call it? Those on the elite and the other side of this tree of life are melting us down into nothing and then extracting whatever, whatever beauty, creativity, good, kind, love, all that is being extracted. It's going to be completely siphoned off into the virtual world. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So your whole life, it's like buying a property in the metaverse, right? You spend all day playing a computer game. Your life force, your life energy is being extracted. It's going into this unreal.
Well, that's exactly
world.
That's exactly what we said that they were doing with Burning Man. You get people to spend all this time all year long to build this object that they're going to take out to the desert and burn, so that they're not contributing anything to the long term of their life. It's all this short term, and then go into the desert, set it on fire, and it's gone. And that's exactly what this computer game, you putting your energy into that, like you just said, that's exactly what that's doing. It's the exact same thing.
Yeah, the distinction being, though, that, right, this will be, I mean, ideally, there's a video from Walmart, right, with you shopping, how would virtual shopping is like, and so basically, you're going to have to do anything. You're going to have to plug into this AI interface.
Mark of the beast. So let me ask you: you think this thing that they've been forcing on people to go to the doctor and get? Do you suspect that is preparing people for this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, this is the end game. I mean, this is happening. This is happening right now. It's going through various stages. There's all these different forces, factors, even the variant names. They're going for broke. I mean, they have 2030 is basically it, right? They want they're going on the fast time scale. Is it going to happen? Sorry, what was your question, Ron?
Well, I was just asking about this. I don't even want to say it because I don't want them to flag the show like they do everything on YouTube. But going to the doctor for things that people go for 3, 4, 5, 10 times now to get.
Well, of course. I mean, that is this is the basically what you have. So, you go back to that trailer for the 6G thing, but it's a fusion of biology. It's fusing human biology, human organic reality, consciousness into machine and into externally controlled cybernetic systems, right? Servo mechanism, turning you into a schizophrenic machine, which is what capitalism and schizophrenia. Deleuze talks about this, which is crazy. He talks about these machines, like all these, this is what is happening as we see around us. Absolutely. That process of going to the doctor, first of all, that is modifying your basic self. So this is literally true. It's not a conspiracy theory, but if you look at I know about this from India, right, where they tried to copyright like turmeric or basmati rice. They've been around for thousands of years. Well, it's international law. If you change any bit of that genome, you own that life form. You own the corn, right? That's why if you have a GMO corn, you own that. If you do that to a human being, literally, you are now complete property. You are owned. You're a product. You don't own yourself anymore. They own you. They have your full rights to your entire organic reality. But every time you go back to the doctor, depending on what level of payout you're getting, right? You can die, you can, whatever, but those that survive they're working on modulating the doses to build up these biocomputing interface systems, right? That are lodged in all various organs of the body, the brain, everywhere, and then going through the visual cortex and completely, you have your mouth closed off, you're masked, you have your visual cortex now is your only entry point. Boom, there you go. That's have you seen that photo from the virtual reality? I love this picture, but yeah, so, I don't know if I answered.
Well, they're
your question.
preparing everybody for the AI, goggles and all of that too. With that,
Yeah, and I think that they're trying to make it so, they're trying to actually do it biologically, right? So it's almost, because when it's biologically implanted, it's permanent. You can't turn it off. You can't take the goggles off. The goggles are your own optical cortex is wired in. That's going to take some time because it's, like I said, I don't think that, I mean, part of this is that this is so insane, right? This is literally, I mean, I'm not making it up. That what's his name? That the transhuman guy. What's that guy's name again?
who Julian Huxley,
No, that the
Ray Kurzweil.
Kurzweil. Yeah, I mean, he talks about this as man. Because this is how man becomes God, by integrating everything into this vast computer system, right? So everything is digitized.
But here's the thing: is there's still reality outside of that. They just want us to abandon reality so that they can play God.
Well, absolutely. And they want to control everything, but they also want to control all other biology. I mean, that's the thing. That's the insanity of it. They want to do this to every life form. Let me just. I want to watch out for the videos here. Man, like, look at Mark Zuckerberg though. I don't think he's human, dude. What do you think he is?
I
don't think he's
going to go there.
I think he's
pretty soon. Here's the thing, Hans. So let's go all the way back. We haven't brought up. God, can we ever get through a show without bringing up a damn Huxley? Ever, ever, ever? So let's go all the way back to Julian Huxley's paper, The Tissue Culture King. I had to go to Princeton personally to get a copy of that paper and spent a couple weeks digging through their archives. But that is where the term tinfoil hat comes from. So, eventually we're going to be at a point where you're literally going to have people, you're going to be wrapping yourselves in tinfoil to keep this crap from getting to you. I mean, so suddenly that, from what we've discussed in the show, that in 8 years' time is no longer going to be conspiracy theory.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sure that it's it's ongoing. I'm just trying to find this image. I can't find it. Okay, but anyways, yeah, I mean, you can see that. Well, there's a picture of this virtual reality conference, right? And Zuckerberg's strutting through there, and everyone has these glasses on. Everybody is like that's literally the future. I got to find this picture. You know what I'm talking about? It's just this image is exactly what's planned for us. When you see it, I'll try to find it. Of course, it's not coming up. So this is this is literally what? Let's see. Okay, here we go. Got it. Okay, let me share this. Wait, no, it's not. Okay, shit. Yeah, I have to zoom in. Hang on. Okay, let me share this. So check this out. So this is what we are. Like, okay, so here's this is some stupid video. Let me just zoom in here. So look at this photo right here. Okay, wait, how do I move this over? Crap. Okay, I don't know if you can see that very clearly there.
You're not sharing it yet.
Oh, I'm not showing it. Okay. Um, okay, so this is that's not it. Okay, is it sharing? Is it showing Zuckerberg?
Yeah.
So you see Zuckerberg, right?
Yeah.
Walking there. And then look, everyone is there. Virtual reality. Can you see that guy's face? Look how he's frowning.
Yeah.
Frown. That's the future. This is humanity. That's the God, right? They're the gods. They've recreated man, and now here's your life, and then you are literally. I mean, there's not going to be any freedom anywhere, and this is. And but that's, it may seem like an innocuous picture, but that is literally where you're going to be. You're going to be, strapped in, or these things implanted in your brain, and your whole biology will be controlled, manipulated remotely in your little smart cubicle, eating your Soylent Green, listening to like Led Zeppelin, maybe. No, they'll probably even get rid of classic rock. It served its purpose, right?
Anna says if Zuckerberg was fake, he wouldn't have man boobs.
I don't know, man. What do you think? I think that makes him human. Otherwise, I just can't. He's so confident. Zuck, would you love to hang out with Zuckerberg and just drink a bottle like in Russia? Do you have one bottle of vodka? You two guys sit there. You have to finish the whole bottle and just drink it with the smell of the pickle. Just you and Zuck just knocking back a whole bottle of vodka.
Hey,
That'd be fun.
as long as there was a Model 1895 sitting on the table, so that we had to play Russian roulette too, and every drink you get a spin of that 7-round cylinder there.
Yeah. Okay. I'll just do my last screen share. I just want to share this here real quick. So this is basically horrific. This is what's coming back. So look at this. I mean, this is our future.
Oh man!
Look at that.
Looks like dog ears. It's the Friar look. It's God. Oh boy, can't wait.
This one, yeah, you can try that. Rock that one, dude.
Yeah, dude, I'll rock that. I could do that one. Wow. Oh, good grief.
That's the face of the future, man. This is the future, man. So these styles are coming back, man. Seriously. So this is
Well, I've been like, we're
leave that up.
I've been seeing the nasty 80s high women's jeans back, but if those hideous skitty man jeans disappear, man, those, I've never seen anything look so awful as those skinny jeans in the man bun.
Dude, if she's available right now, chick, I called her.
Oh yeah, there we go, the punk look.
Oh, okay, enough of that. All right, so that's over. But
you want to unshare screen there?
Yep, please. Done. So that was no, I got a bad haircut. I was trying to find something to look like it, so that's the best I could do. But no, but actually, you're right. No, the '80s fashions are coming back. I mean, those jeans that just look terrible. You know what I mean? Like, if you're like, a 6-foot tall supermodel, they may look good, but for any normal female, they really look awful. And it's
well, especially, obesity has gone through the roof since the 90s, and those 80s styles, people were relatively healthy. If you look at photos of people on the beach in the 70s and 80s, obesity was almost non-existent. Now every other person is, obese. So that's not going to be a pretty scene, Good grief,
Well,
man.
that's another part of that schismogenesis, right? So, for example, you make these, basically unattractive women, right? That biologically, no offense to women that maybe feel they're unattractive. I'm not, this is nothing personal at all, but you know what I mean. So you make that an object of beauty, right? You keep inverting these things. You know what I mean. You force people to have this. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm talking about, right? You have
Yeah.
like the fat swimsuit models or the whatever. Um, and that's
And then they normalize obesity rather than bringing people back to health, but that's a whole other issue. Yeah.
well, then it becomes a victim, right? Then
Someone
it
said
gets,
Jordache jeans in the chat. Exactly right.
yeah, but then you have this, with the inversionary pyramid, right, of critical race theory or wokeism, right? So when you invert the pyramid, of course, the white man is at the bottom. Yeah. So we're like rocking the white male, Christian gun owning person is like at the that parent is at the very bottom of
Right.
the
Well, and then that
pyramid.
way it's eugenics so that people can take themselves out, but then you have moral relativism, you have everything else that goes with it, and you have certain groups, and people can look this up on Google, or wherever. Look up global IQ rates and look at the images of the maps where it's laid out there, and you can see that different cultures have different IQs. It's just a fact. It's not racism. It's just a fact. And then when you look at those IQ maps, you can see that half of the people in those cultures are dumber than the number that it shows there. So, it's you have to create a system that's easily controlled, and you have to, every socialist genocide, and we started with Hitler's hyperbole, but every socialist genocide starts with demonizing a certain group. So now they're going to demonize conservative Christian white males who believe in protecting the family and the community. And and we've seen that going on for 4 or 5 years heavily now, but with the riots and all, really extremely. But yeah, I mean, you could see that stuff coming a mile away. So the next genocide the left will commit will be against white Christian or just conservative Christian males. That will be the next genocide, and I've been saying this for several years now.
Yeah.
And I saw that photo of you in church recently, Hans. You better be careful. Maybe you want to take that photo down so they don't know that you're a.
Yeah. No. When you have this, but you have the inversionary pyramid, right? So the more oppressed you are, right? So if you're obese, you're trans, you're gay, you're this, you're that, you have the more power, you have the more status. And not only that, you create reality, right? So one of the tenets of this theory is that your sense of oppression is the privilege, right? White privilege is there because you believe it's there. You have microaggressions. You have all this stuff where there's no longer any rule of law. There's no longer rule of facts. There's simply rule of emotion for those who have. And this is actually, they have these scales where how oppressed you are, right? How many things against you? I'm gay, trans, bi, fat. I smell bad. I don't know. I don't smell bad. I'm just, none of this. This is not me. I'm just saying, like that.
But so they're going to have a scale, and how much victimization they can create in themselves will create for themselves a higher score in this new transhumanist technocracy system.
It's literally there.
So it's all So it's all victim culture. So if somebody can, pretend, they're the opposite sex, and then be obese, and then be homosexual, and then be, trans species, and then be,
Pedophile.
a pedophile, and then be all of these different things, a feminist, you name it. All of these things will add up to their social score, their social credit score. And if you're a cisgendered white conservative Christian male, guess what? You're the oppressor. And then the Islamists will be looked upon as poor victims as well, even though, you have to completely ignore every one of their books to believe such a thing. But, so all of this stuff is going to create this inversion of society based on victimhood.
Yeah, no, and that scale is already there, and this is part of this schismogenesis. For example, you have your transgender swimmers, right? The transgender athletes, breaking women's skulls open. It's like, but even though it's there, you have like the abutting of something that's just not true. This is not a body of a woman, whatever you want to. But there, it's going into actual, real time primary reality.
Well, it's like when you see these bumper stickers on monster trucks that say "I identify as a Prius." That's the sum of it all. And that's throwing the whole thing back in their face. But that's what it's going to be. It's whatever you identify as, and if anybody points out to you that reality proves otherwise, you are going against what's the word you used earlier for the community standards. Those are the, Facebook's, YouTube's community standards. So therefore I can, identify as drive a monster truck, identify as a Prius, say that I've gotten the jab and all of this other stuff. And if you say otherwise, basically what we have to do is use their frickin' retarded inversion against them at their own game. It's ridiculous. Yeah. Somebody just wrote dystopian hell. Well, that's what Aldous Huxley, who is the key architect of MK Ultra, his Brave New World is a dystopia. But, it's for the elite who are engineering this stuff. It's their utopia because they're enslaving the rest of humanity once and for all. What do you think, Hans?
Well, no, absolutely. I mean, this is, I think what's interesting is that, again, that this psychological, you're doing all these techniques, and you're actually really affecting the human nervous system. I mean, this is unprecedented, so like I said, it's almost like, the Pokemon Go operation showed that people are willing to step into voluntarily.
What was that, 5 years ago you and I exposed that?
Yeah. But that is the rollout. That's contact tracing also. That is 6G. That showed that they were ready to run this operation, which is, well, okay, let's, I'll say a few minutes, like some solutions, I think.
All right.
And
if anybody wants to support the show, throw up donations, ask your questions as we wrap it up here.
Yeah, and I got some books left, so please, hansutter@hotmail.com. If you want books, I promise I'll respond to emails. I know I had issues with the emails disappearing in the black hole. That's not going to happen now. I think I got it all sorted out. But yeah, a few hardcover books left. But in terms of solutions, first of all, because this is, you understand the architecture, right, of what's happening, how these things, even though they're subtle, can also start to erode your own sanity, right? And I didn't get into the material, the social generation of schizophrenia, this stuff is, it is affecting all of us, right? But if you're not aware of it, it becomes an unconscious stimuli. The positive side is they're really working on the level, you could say, just like sort of the music, social interaction level, on the mental level, on, obviously the masking is creating a, thing, but, it's possible to extract yourself from that, to see that right now it's still really on that psychological plane. So in order to defeat that, I mean, you have to really defeat it in yourself. I think requires one, like an awareness of how my chair is like, my chair just started like going everywhere. But you have to see this, how this operating in yourself, in your own life. And I think it's really important to reach the highest level of integration you can, to cultivate virtuous action, to cultivate the positive qualities that you have. To this, it's, literally one level, it's like soul extraction, right? It's like you're signing the contract with the devil, but they want to extract your soul. This is literally the consciousness, even beyond your body and brain. That's what they want to put into this artificial universe. So you have your higher values, your virtue, your courage, your compassion, to develop that, to use this as a time to really reach this highest level in yourself. Mind training is very important. It's very important to learn how to work with your mind, your states of consciousness, how, say, which I think this guy's great, Husserl phenomenology, to be able to take in experience, to understand how you're experiencing that in your own brain as in the own world, to really clear your mind, be able to focus your attention completely if you need to, right? To really be able to be aware of what's happening. And we're going to increasingly have to be able to differentiate what our own thoughts and moods and experiences are, and what are things that are being externally inputted, right? This is what all the targeted individuals have dealt with for years, right? Voice to skull. But I think as this ramps up with this 5G networks, with all this other stuff, these types of influences of emotional states are really going to start to hit hard on people too. So by personal development, and then also networking, community networking, really, they're envisioning the Great Reset. We have to envision creating our own local networks, local supply chains, as much as possible. To be able to, we can use a lot of this infrastructure technology. There's a lot of ways to work around. You can have small transponders, create small, you can create your own networks. They're not going to be localized or even a statewide network. There's so many things, but connect locally if you can, but it's really, I think you have to find that highest part in yourself, and really be careful. And I think these spiritual qualities, I think it is, the way out has to almost be spiritual. You have to really rise to the next level, because on this plane, on one level, you could say it looks like they pretty much got this in the bag. You know what I mean? Hopefully they don't. I'm not saying they do. I'm not saying the technology works like they think it does. Basically, human beings can't live in a virtual world. You get a massive headache, right? It screws up our whole, because you're getting all the stimulus from these, very limited points. So you're basically, you're fracturing your brain, right? You're creating the schizophrenic, shattered self. It's very hard to live in that. It's like being like a junkie. You know what I mean? Like a junkie lives only for the drug. You got to break that addiction. And there's definitely, I don't want, it depends on my mood and what's happening. Sometimes I'll be more positive on this than others, but I mean, we're all being affected, but we can make the change. We are still not totally enslaved, right? It's still psychological level. This is the window. When that goes down, they really throw the roadblocks down. If we end up like Australia, and you know what I mean, and they eliminate cash and all that shit, that's where we got to prepare. But basically right now, I think we can push it back because it's on the consciousness level. Really, even this 6G stuff, it has to be accepted. You have to sign the contract with Satan. You have to give up. You have to abnegate, right? You have to wallow in your negative emotions. This is where You must clear yourself and cleanse your heart and really be your day-to-day life. Really take that as sacred. Every moment, every day, the people around you, create a positive influence. Okay. So.
Well said, boy. Wow. Yeah. It's yeah, that's clearly where we're at, It really is. And thanks, Boru, for the $100 donation there. I really appreciate that. Thanks for everybody who contributed during tonight's show. Helps counter the $2,500 deductible I have to pay for the dang tree in my ceiling. Hi, tree.
Pretty cool though. I like it.
Yeah, well, it was a 6,000-pound tree on top of my house. I'm lucky it didn't destroy the whole house. It's rather amazing that it didn't, honestly. So, when are we going to have you back, Hans? It's been over a year since you've been on. That's probably almost the longest stint, I think, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm glad I made it through. Like I said, I still feel totally sick. I mean, I was able to get through the show, but it's fun, man. I haven't done any of this stuff, so probably soon. I mean, I didn't, of course, hit all the material. We could do another
Well,
topic, but yeah.
anybody else who's covering this kind of material?
I don't think so. I mean, I kind of tend to find my own formulations of some of the stuff. I don't know if they are. I see a lot of, there could be, I'm sure. I mean, I know people are probably covering, I mean, the transhuman and the COVID stuff. I mean, a lot of people are covering that, but this is a little bit more metaphorical. So this particular thing, the schismogenesis, I've never heard anyone mention this in this context. And so I know someone may be doing it, but I don't know who. So I just, I came up with the title. I was like, I better find some material, man.
Well, you managed to fill an hour and a half pretty well. Any questions in the audience tonight? Anyone? Somebody asked where I'm at. I'm in the Southern California mountains on the rim of the world. And let's see. Yeah, someone said check out the game Second Life. It kind of describes what we're going into. We talked about the dystopian hell. We talked about victim culture. Blah, blah, blah. So it looks like we're pretty well caught up there. Buse says check out Patrick Wood's work. I don't remember if I've checked his
Technocracy Rising, yeah. So he's got some good stuff. But yeah, he does technocracy. That's his thing. Technocracy. There's some things he doesn't cover.
But sorry, before you finish that, also give out your email for the book again.
Okay, yeah, hansutter@hotmail.com or sacredmusic769 at gmail.com. You want me to put that in the chat?
Sure.
I may be talking fast here.
I'm typing your Hotmail address.
Okay, I'll put in. But yeah, no, I appreciate it. I like doing it. I think it's important, to. I mean, I wish, man. I wish, we used to talk about this stuff. It was, I think I spelled that right. Yep. So, it's like I never imagined I'd live to see this day, though, where all this stuff is all happening, right? And I think by knowing about the roots of this stuff, I think we have an advantage. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In terms of analyzing it, because I think when you understand the processes, it's possible to rewind them and unwind them, and you can see exactly what they're doing. And again, it's that it kind of blows my mind. But things that seem simple, actually have really major, profound psychological impacts, right? Like, so that exercise I did, this stimulates different sides of your brain. It actually, you can do this, this also stimulates, you put your hand on your navel and then right between your sternum, and you just do these circles. This connects neural pathways. It just seems like, that feels good. Oh yeah. That's good. But it doesn't feel that good. But it resets your brain. You do it, wow, you get refreshed, right? it's doing stuff neurophysiologically. By the same token, you can do things that are going to damage your brain and then when you add the fear, you add the adrenal stuff, you add all this stuff. It's really sad, man, what this is it's doing, and it's they're going for broke. I mean, they literally want to control, wipe out, probably 5 billion people, and keep the rest as robotic slaves living in a virtual world where you're completely controlled. There's no part of your consciousness or body that belongs to you.
Yep.
You're no longer a human being, because the freedom is what makes a human being, right? You know what I mean? It's
Yep.
other. So.
And they've inverted freedom as well.
Oh yeah, freedom. That Frank Zappa says, that has that song. Freedom is where you don't have to do nothing or be nothing. I want to be free. But it's like free like the wind. But its idea of freedom is that you become free by what? You go to your rave. Your rave. You enter into the cybernetic mind. You have, all this photic driving from light waves. You join this group collective consciousness. You have this, seems like a great experience. Why? Because we want to expand beyond ourselves, right? But in the real world, right? You want to grow yourself, your spiritual self, your physical self. You know what I mean? Then you get the sense of going beyond yourself when you connect with things. But in this case, you're just connecting with, it's like a connection of a disconnection, right? You're connecting with the shit in your mind, the babe dancing there on E. Oh, I feel so good. I'm on E. Yeah.
Thanks,
Oh,
Robert 40.
And then you're sucking, your neural spinal fluid is drying out. And guess what? You're becoming, from the real world, you're becoming more and more isolated, right?
Yeah.
And that's what happens with LSD, right? You go to this space, transcendent space, and in your real life, it's like sucking all the marrow out of your real experience, right? People have been like almost addicted to LSD. You probably know people like that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what are they like? How would you describe that?
Well, back in my 20s, I used to do that crap often. And, you feel, I don't know, what's the, disconnected, dry, like you're just not all in it, and, that's why they sold that from psychotomimetic and schizophrenogen. There we go. To mimic psychosis and to generate schizophrenia. Those were the two original names, and then hallucinogen. But that's why they remarketed them from that to psychedelic and then to entheogen. And then in 2014, I remarketed them to suggestogens because they clearly cause hypersuggestibility. But, at the same time, in hindsight, now I'm saying that we need to reincorporate the terms psychotomimetic and schizophrenogens into suggestogens. I don't know how you accomplish that because it's actually all of that. And but they had to seed the idea or plant the idea in our heads that this psychotic break was a religious experience, and therefore ayahuasca, LSD, mushrooms, etc. are good for you. And you go back, and I've talked about this many times on the show before. You go back into the ancient Aztec reports, and they're using this stuff to prepare, they're using the mushrooms to prepare their slaves for human sacrifice. So why did the left, why did Gordon Wasson, Terrence McKenna, Carl Ruck, Jonathan Ott, Timothy Leary, all the rest of these MK Ultra frauds, why did they omit that was a death cult and then sell it as this new religion? And now we can see why, because of this ability to hypersuggest schizophrenia. What were you going to say? The creation of the word?
No, it's psychoschizophrenogen.
Psychoschizophrenogen. There you go.
Schizoids schizos, whatever. I'll come up with something.
Emma in the chat says all ayahuasca shamans are egomaniacs. I would agree with that. The biggest narcissistic jerks that I come across regarding my work are all people that are involved in the psychedelic community. And they will sit there, psychedelics are of the earth. God created them. Therefore, they can't be bad. As if, there's no such thing as poisonous mushrooms or poisonous things from the earth and whatever else. But, they think that because they're from the earth, they can't be used. They can't be hypersuggestogens or whatever the heck. And that it's all just, glory and good times, and God created it, therefore it's the real religious experience. I mean, I've heard that same stupid argument probably upwards of 10,000 times, and every single idiot that repeats it thinks that they're the first ones to ever bring it to my attention. It's like, no, you're the first one today or this week, you clown. But, I've been working on an article for years called, what's it called here? I'll show it on screen here. Flesh of the Gods, Teonanacatl and the Aztec Mushroom Death Cult. And right in the beginning of the article here, I talk about how, the biggest attack on me is from people who, one of the most common arguments I hear against my research on MKUltra and psychedelics is because mushrooms or other various psychedelic plants come from the earth and are older than the CIA. They therefore couldn't possibly be used or misused by the CIA, and therefore they, the drugs, are the true origins of spirituality and religion. I've been working on this article for probably 5 years or more. That's how long that little line has been in there. So obviously 5-6 years ago, I kept hearing those people say that nonsense too, but they don't think through it all, And even Gordon Wasson in his Mushrooms, Russia, and History talks about mushrooms being of the devil and for possession. So anyway.
Well, that's one of the primary things is that this is, you're basically opening yourself up, right? So this, especially in ayahuasca, at least the Santo Daime, I've told that story dozens of times, but that, really freaky experience, where, just you let the spirit possess you, and you're seeing all these spirits coming out of the vortex and going into people's bodies. There is whether or not you want to believe it, I think there's probably is an astral level, right? That as astral levels talked about, these aren't spiritual entities. They're in a quasi, almost, non-material space, but this is where all this stuff is happening. This is where the harvesting of consciousness is happening. And this is where this sort of astral space, this disembodied world, this is what people think the clear light is, right? Of Leary, I'm going into the clear light. Well, that clear light, maybe a few people have actually, taken LSD once and they're totally enlightened for the rest of their lives. I don't know. But that clear light is actually the false light, right? That's the Luciferian light, but that's also going into the mirror, right? You're going into your inner mirror. You're just gazing at yourself.
It's like the inverted tree of life or tree of knowledge that we discussed earlier.
Yeah, and so the problem is that, maybe you can see something really cool. I knew people that they couldn't mow the lawn unless they were tripping. Oh man, I got to take some acid. I got to mow the lawn. You know what I mean? That's what I'm saying. That's it. But you get your glimpse there of whatever higher state. Even if you reach a real higher state when you're tripping, how does that affect the rest of your life? You come back down from your trip, you're going to want to get back there again. Are you going to get back with the next trip? No, you're going to get lower. What you're doing, you're derealizing yourself. As a very astute comment from the one listener said, the shamans, they're the gods of this domain, right? So this inner domain of psychic experience, right? Which is available to you if you become integrated, right? If you can reach these kind of experiential planes naturally, if once you're, in very good health and your body and mind are integrated, you can see a sunset. You can have that experience of that, that ecstasy, whatever, in daily life. Yeah. But you have to reach that by cleaning yourself. With this stuff, you get all these visions or whatever, and you're going further and further into this. You're basically trapped in your own mind, or maybe you could be a group mind, right? Like the Merry Pranksters, they were doing lots of one of the experimentations they did was generation of schizophrenia, right? So they were seeing how to generate schizophrenia in hapless participants like Ken Kesey, Owsley, whoever, that, you got a lot of the useful idiots, right, that are maybe still high up, but you've got people, they're running these experiments, right? They experiment with sympathetic telepathy, creating a hive mind, right?
Yeah.
So they did lots of stuff, getting people to fuse into a group mind, right, with the merry pranksters. That's that experimentation, and that's the massification, as opposed to real connection, real community, not communitarian community, right? And so, the virtual world and the LSD experience, the social media, the likes, all this stuff, they're very analogous, right? This is like a similar process that is inculcating all of humanity. And then, just as if, say, you have abusive parents or something, you're a high school kid and you escape by taking LSD and listening to Pink Floyd, right?
Yeah.
I know my next door neighbor did that. He literally had a genius IQ. He used to, his parents had a bad marriage, father was abusive, would take LSD. He ended up from going to like a top college. He's now, I don't know if he's just a total alcoholic, works on cars. The guy just became just like a zombie, basically. But that was his escape, right? The same thing. You were afraid of COVID. You're afraid of this. You're depressed. You're going to go into your virtual world. You're going to take the medication that may not be good for you, and you're going to dissociate, right? And so the mind, when the mind is being traumatized, right? When you have I didn't get into the MPD stuff. And I'll end on this. This gets kind of deep, but they have sort of the model, right, of how you fracture the personality, usually based on this grid, actually based on actually a Kabbalah. It's also that's in there with the techniques of fracturing the personality for the MK Ultra stuff, and that's what's happening to humanity. But when you get that intense trauma, right, to fracture your mind, there can be a feeling of ecstasy. You may feel like you're floating in this beautiful space. That's like the trauma, right? Of you have the mass, look at the drug cults in Mexico. You take mushrooms and kill people. That one drug lord dude, or he was used to do all these human sacrifices. There's a movie on it, right? I mean, that stuff's ongoing, man.
Which
They're
one
still
was
doing
that?
it. God, I forget the
Wasn't
name.
El Chapo, was it, or who was it?
This was this guy. He was actually like more of a voodoo doctor, right? He was involved in a cocaine trade, but he was very prominent. He had like even the president of Mexico. He would do these human sacrifice rituals, and huge, and he was immensely wealthy. But basically, these two American tourists got kidnapped, were sacrificed. It got investigated. Finally, it was discovered, and they found like all these bodies because one of the guys
Well,
working for him. But
But
I mean that.
that what you're describing, that was the traditional Aztec mushroom cult religion. So let me just interject here. And one of the first people I ever had on the show was Dr. or Professor Neil Whitehead, and he died over a decade ago. But he wrote, "Shamanism is a burgeoning obsession for the middle classes around the globe. Its presentation in popular books, TV specials, and on the internet is dominated by the presumed psychic and physical benefits that shamanic techniques can bring. This heightened interest has required a persistent purification of the ritual practices of those who inspire the feverish quest for personal meaning and fulfillment. Ironically, given the self-improvement motivations that have brought so many into a popular understanding of shamanism, two defining aspects of shamanism in Amazonia, blood, i.e. violence, and tobacco, have simply been erased from such representations. Such erasure is not only a vain self-deception, but more important, it is a recapitulation of colonial ways of knowing through both the denial of radical cultural difference and a refusal to think through its consequences." Now, before I throw it back to you, Hans, there is, some of the stuff that R. Gordon Wasson whitewashed in his work. Like Diego Duran. Let me see if I can find that here. Wasson does this whole whitewash of all of Diego Duran's work because, and here's Wasson citing Diego Duran, the sacrifice finished on the steps of the temple, a patio bathed in human blood. They all went out to eat raw mushrooms, yada, yada. And then Wasson continues on, Duran's tone here seems so out of harmony with what he had previously said that were we not dealing with the holographic manuscript in his own hand, I would ask whether we had to do with an interpolation of some priestly redactor, blah, blah, blah. But then he goes on to talk about how white men couldn't properly interpret what was going on. Well, if we go down, if we pull up, and then Rolf Singer, one of these ethnomycologists, tried to expose that the Aztecs were using the mushrooms to prepare their human victims, and Wasson attacked him and left his name out. It took me quite a while, and a guy in France, Marcus, found that. But if we go to the original, and then I'll pass it back to you, Hans, if we go to the original passage that Wasson just cited there, it says, and this is from Diego Duran, History of the Indies of New Spain, page 407 in the English translation. This is from the 16th century. When the festivities had ended, Montezuma seated himself in the supreme place, the divine seat, the place of the gods, and the war captives were brought out. All of them were sacrificed in honor of his coronation, a painful ceremony. And it was a pathetic thing to see these wretches as victims of Montezuma. It had become as common among these people to sacrifice men on feast days as it is for us to kill lambs or cattle in the slaughter. I am not exaggerating. There were days in which 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, or 8,000 men were sacrificed, and their flesh was eaten, and the banquet was prepared with it after the hearts had been offered to the devil. When the sacrifice had finished and the steps of the courtyard were bathed in human blood, everyone went to eat raw mushrooms. With this food, they went out of their minds and were in a worse state than if they had drunk a great quantity of wine. They became so inebriated and witless that many of them took their own lives with their own hands. Under the strong influence of these mushrooms, they saw visions and had revelations about the future, since the devil spoke to them in their drunken madness. But Wasson, to make that argument, he had to truncate this entire first paragraph here, because where Duran says, I am not exaggerating, didn't fit with the J.P. Morgan Bank, Gordon Wasson spin that Wasson was trying to portray there. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Let me just get some water. You keep going for a minute.
Oh, well, you should have grabbed water then, because I
wanted to hear. No, it was so interesting. I wanted to hear the whole quote.
Oh, okay. Well, so, yeah, but anyway, that whole thing, and there were numerous other quotes about the Aztecs using the drugs as a death cult. And I've exposed some of these before on the show. I don't mind showing this stuff on screen here. Jacinto de la Serna here goes on about the mushrooms. But, this is the Florentine Codex here, and I've read many of these before. One of noble lineage is a follower of the exemplary life, a taker of the good example of others, a seeker, a follower of the exemplary life. The good one of noble lineage is a student, teachable, indoctrinated. He follows the exemplary life. He sets forth the exemplary life. The bad one of noble lineage is a scandalizer, a flatterer, a drinker, besotted, drunk. He goes about crazed. He goes about eating deuterostramonium and mushrooms. He becomes vain and brazen. And then the lewd youth. The lewd youth is a madman. He goes about, and of course, all of these quotes from the 15th, 16th century, all of these quotes have been entirely misrepresented by the whole of the psychedelic community. It doesn't matter the professor, the writer, the researcher. I am the only one who has dug down and gotten the primaries out of the whole field, and that's why they hate me for showing this stuff. But the lewd youth is a madman. He goes about drinking crude wine, a drunkard, foolish, dejected, a drunk, a sot. He goes about eating mushrooms. He goes about demented. He is restless, dissolute, shameless, presumptuous, lewd, tattling, wicked, a vile brute, brazen. He is impudent. He consumes his inner substance. He is vain, proud, debauched, a pleasure seeker, a libertine, revolting, filthy, vicious, a keeper of mistresses, a talker. He lives in concubinage. He is given to pleasure. That sounds like what, Hans? What does that sound?
That sounds like, you're
That sounds like any hippie you've ever seen, any deadhead, any hippie you've seen in the last 50, 60 years.
well, absolutely. And let me just show this. I think this is advertising. They're not going to take it down because this is there's a little bit of this trailer for that movie I was mentioning. And so I definitely recommend this.
No way. Imagine a land, if you will, where a man can be a man. A land where he can ride the demon. Vámonos a la frontera! There's no God. Most people are terrified by that thought.
There are many, and they live among us.
Whoa. You're not leaving. Let's catch up with you guys later. My friends and I can give you a ride. I'm gonna walk anyway. Hello? Where am I? The other side of the rainbow.
If Santillán took your friend, there is nothing you can do.
In return for the God's protection, he gives to them sacrifice. I know where his friend is. Los espíritus. God was going to use you to talk to him. What's going to happen to me? He's alive.
Wow.
Okay, I'm going to pause that. But yeah, no. So this is
Take it out of...
so when I just remembered something. So again, this is completely true story, and it's really fascinating that this share screen stuff. Okay, cool. Yeah. So basically, though, when they were kidnapped, right, they were tripping. They were on mushrooms when they got taken for the human sacrifice. So, and that movie has got it's one of those movies. I think it's got like 1 or 2 stars. It's actually a great movie. It's better than 99% of the garbage. But research that guy, man. He's way more. They found he killed like thousands of people. And this stuff though, just to clarify, there was a guy in the Middle Ages, in the 14th century. His name will come to me. I can look it up real quick, but he was like this duke or whatever in France. He murdered like about 1,000 boys. He kidnapped them. He got into human sacrifice. This thread has been running as an subterranean undercurrent for thousands of years.
Yeah, we call them, pedivores and whatnot,
Well, this goes the fundamental principle, and this goes into it ties into AI transhumanism. Why? Because you go back to the ancient Chaldean mystery schools, pre-Christian, the really ancient stuff this is coming out of. The whole point is you want to wrest the power from God, right? By inverting nature, by sacrificing, by eating flesh, by debauchery, by whatever. You want to become God. This is
exactly why Jesus was supposed to be the last sacrifice. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, but this is the whole point, is that this thing of both the transhumanism, but also the desire to escape, right? You're going to take your LSD, you're going to go into your virtual reality. And as you said, that was such a great description from that text. You become selfish, you become lewd, you don't have any boundaries. You're a pleasure seeker. You consume your own vital essence.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
You're feeding on yourself.
This is exactly why Gordon Wasson and Carl Ruck and Terrence McKenna and all of the rest of the frauds in the whole psychedelic ethnomycology arena have omitted these texts, And, when I got a copy of the Florentine Codex and looked these things up. John W. Allen, another one. They would, if they cited him at all, they would take a single little line out of that, how, they were a pleasure seeker or something like that, and then would omit the whole text about it destroying their being, So, the whole thing is the whole promotion from May 13, 1957 onward in Life magazine that kicked off essentially the counterculture through Gordon Wasson. Everything since then has been a false presentation. Like Maria Sabina is promoted as this mushroom saint. What Gordon Wasson did was go out and interview a whole bunch of drunk, illiterate people, indigenous people from Mexico. And from the estimates, it appears that he cobbled together anywhere from 12 to 16 different people's reports from all over Mexico, and then mashed it all together, and then put it on Maria Sabina and created the whole mushroom cult and put her as a saint of it. And guess what? Maria Sabina was a devout Catholic, and of course he omitted that too. So... yeah, the whole thing is a fraud. Everything that they promote about it is a fraud. The ayahuasca stuff is a fraud too.
Well, I mean, and that's you know what? Maybe we'll do another show.
Yeah, we're right at 2 hours right now, so we should probably wrap it up.
I won't go to the schizophrenia and social factors, but yeah, no, I mean this like that Santo Daime, man. I mean, because like I said, my brother who's dead, he passed away. He got, he was a priest in that thing. I mean, it destroyed my brother, man. You know what I mean? He was like my best friend. He's gone forever.
When did he die?
He died June of 2020. So,
wow, I didn't even know that. So that was,
yeah. So to me, it seems it was about a year and a half, but yeah. So no, he was way into that, man. He had friggin' mulch bags full of ayahuasca and stuff,
Jeez,
But he's not with us. But he thought he was invincible, like all, the thing. But I saw people, I mean, like I just to check it out with him. Like I said, I went to some of these rituals. And he was. Well,
you said you had seen Baphomet in one of those rituals.
Oh, yeah. But I mean, there's people that went nuts, right? There's one girl. Multiple people, even people like some of his friends in that circle I met. Several of them are permanently insane now. They're locked in mental hospital.
And a lot of the ayahuasca stuff is, they put scopolamine in the ayahuasca, and which is devil's weed, whatever. But that's what really causes people to lose their freaking minds on that stuff. Just, you know what? And people call me the damned agent for exposing all of this stuff and telling people not to take it. Well, if it's outlawed because they don't want us to get to it. No, it's outlawed because in 1965 or 66 or whatever, Timothy Leary himself went to Congress and requested Congress to outlaw it so that he could have a good youthful rebellion with illegal substances because, they changed the name to psychedelic right about then for marketing purposes, as I exposed in my article, Entheogens, What's in a Name. But if Leary had gone out trying to promote drugs called schizophrenogens and psychotomimetics, the whole damn thing wouldn't have worked. And so, here's for those who don't believe it, here's Timothy Leary before Congress, and then we'll wrap it up after this. And this is from from Congress from 1966. Senator Dodd, don't you think that the drugs need to be put under control or restriction? Dr. Leary, pardon, sir. Senator Dodd, let me rephrase my question. Do you feel that LSD should be put under some control or restriction as to its use? Dr. Leary, yes, sir. Senator Dodd, as to its sale, its possession, and its use? Leary, I definitely do. In the first place, I think that the 1965 Drug Control Act, which this committee, I understand, sponsored, is the high watermark for such legislation. And then Larry continues, yes, sir, I agree completely with your bill, the 1965 Drug Control Act. I think this is the, and then Senator Dodd, that the federal government and the state governments ought to control it. Dr. Leary, exactly. I am in 100% agreement with the 1965 Drug Control Bill. Senator Kennedy of Massachusetts, so there shouldn't be, and then Dr. Leary, I wish the states, I might add, would follow the wisdom of this committee and the Senate and Congress of the United States and follow your lead with exactly this kind of legislation. Senator Kennedy of Massachusetts, so there should not be indiscriminate distribution of this drug, should there? Dr. Leary, I have never suggested that, sir. I have never urged anyone to take LSD. I have always deplored the indiscriminate use. So you get these people and they'll cite McKenna, oh, well, you know, the psychedelics are illegal because the man wants you to take coffee and alcohol and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, McKenna, he's just a genius and, you know, and all this just nonsense. No, they're outlawed because Leary went to Congress. Leary worked with the CIA. He went to Congress and he requested that psychedelics be outlawed for the MKUltra project to kick off. Now, here I'm going to read this quote really quickly for those of you in doubt. I proceeded as an intelligence agent since 1962, understanding that the next war for control of this planet and beyond had to do with the control of consciousness. Yes, he answered strongly, I was a witting agent of the CIA. So you work for the Central Intelligence Agency, I asked. Is it the deputy director of plans you work for? Who makes out your checks? It's none of your business to know how those things work. I'll answer you no questions that have to do with business. I'll answer you any questions about history or people. Walter Boert interviewing Timothy Leary. And who was Walter Boert? The husband of Peggy Mellon Hitchcock of the Mellon banking family that funded the Grateful Dead's first album. Her brother Billy Hitchcock LSD Enterprises, gave Leary the Millbrook Mansion so that Leary and Ralph Mesner and Dick Alpert or Dick Ramdass and the Merry Pranksters could all do their human experiments on everybody coming through Millbrook, in New York. So that's the truth of that stuff. It's, you know, and I get all of these ridiculous emails still today, even though I published that article 7 years ago. Well, why is it illegal if they don't want, or if they want us to take it? Well, you got to think. Rebellious kids don't do legal substances, so they outlawed it to get you folks to take it. Exactly the opposite of what you think. Like Thomas Pynchon said, if you ask the wrong questions, they don't have to worry about the answers. That's a wrap for me. You got anything else to add, Hans?
Yeah, I sent my other email address in the chat to you.
Yeah,
so
I posted it in the thing a while ago.
Yeah, that's exactly right, and it's so important to see that this is the foundational aspect of. Without that, this wouldn't be happening now.
Yeah,
there's no way this could have been rolled out. We are. And so many things tied in with that. Just real briefly, the manager of the Grateful Dead, the first manager was a disciple of who? Rules for Radicals, right?
Yep, Saul Alinsky.
Saul Alinsky, you know, the first rule of community organized, community disorganization. That whole Alinsky model is being deployed also on the whole society, creating, you know what I mean? So all this stuff, that's, you know, the warlocks, man. I mean, what they're doing, they're saying, you're going to have a state of ecstasy. You'll feel great, but you're basically debasing yourself. You're becoming a self-human sacrifice to this satanic god. So only the, just like with Aztecs, the priest and the king and maybe the group of nobility, they were just feeding off of the whole mass of the population and all that debauchery. But you're also, you're giving up your soul, your human essence. You're reverting to an animal. You're no longer, you know what I mean? And the problem is that, you know, people think this is supposed to be healing, and they're going to find the way. And it's
they've even they started calling the psychedelic, schizophrenogenic, psychotomimetic drugs, or the suggestogens, as I rename them, they call them medicines now to make them sound healing. You know, what more obvious marketing strategy is there? But
That's why I took ayahuasca, man, because I had this, I had a car accident. I had some like nerve damage and
yeah,
spinal.
the Toyota or whatever, right?
Yeah, he said it was going to heal my spine. That's why I fucking did that. Sorry to swear. I did ayahuasca. It's like, and I'm like, dude, like this is the guy running it he's like, it was totally.
Satan.
They admitted it was behind it. The last day they had these upside down double crosses. This, with the purple. So it was like Rosemary's Freaking Baby. Seriously.
Yeah, wow.
It was like this is.
And that's when you saw Baphomet, isn't it?
No, it was the day before. I
wow.
was, but yeah, no, that thing is a pure satanic cult. But the people like my brother who thinks he's like some shaman, and I'm sorry he's dead. I really am. I miss him tremendously, but he couldn't see that. I said, dude, this is. He did some research and okay, well, it may be connected with this guy that was demonic, but he became good. Because they well-meaning people, when you go too far into that, you can't get back out.
Yep.
And and it's how many people have they destroyed with this shit? How many people think they're trapped in this meaningless world instead of going within, instead of going without, purifying the mind, the senses, the body, finding the real way. They you basically you just take all that debasement and all the problems you have, you shove them in a little box, and it's like, oh, I feel great, and all of your problems, they keep growing and growing, and eventually that just comes up and consumes your life and consumes the lives of those around you. So like I said, it's something, it's not abstract to me, but the problem is when people are on that shit, they think they're impervious, right? They won't listen to you. You can't talk to them. They think they're like God. You know what I mean? I become God, man. I'm dancing with Lord Shiva. You know what I mean? And dude,
well, it ties in. All of this ties in exactly with what we did with Kieran and Steve Jones last week. So
awesome, man. Yeah. Well, I know we went over time, so I just want to thank you. It's been a long time. I appreciate it. Hopefully I was coherent. Like I said, I'm not.
Yeah, you're fine, dude. You sounded great. Let's have you back on sometime soon. We don't have to wait for 15 months, 16 months, whatever it was, since the 12th anniversary show. But I plan on doing more, and I really appreciate all of the support and donations in the chat. Please hit the like and subscribe, folks. Please share this work around. Everybody knows I'm shadow banned more than anybody. I used to have one of the top 10 shows in the world 11, 12 years ago. So heavily suppressed to the couple thousand of you that will be allowed to see this. So consider yourselves the lucky ones to even get an alert. I know people that will add a subscription and alerts like several times, and within weeks it's removed again, and they have to go back and re-add it. So, all right, Dr. Hans Utter, thank you so much, and mind-blowing information tonight. For those who were here, I'm sure that it really struck a chord, and share it with those who you care about, and hopefully they can see through to what, to some of what you and I are talking about here, Hans. We're probably a little deep for some people, but yeah. So yeah, Terrence, he's calling himself Terrence McKenna in the chat. He should get rid of that avatar. Awful. But he says he lives in Riverside, about 25 minutes away from me. Yeah, I'm in Rim. So anyway, signing off.
Well, thank God I didn't do the. I used to be really into McKenna. Thank God I never did the heroic dose.
I did, unfortunately, but.
I know. Well, but McKenna never did it, man.
Oh, I know. He didn't do it. Yeah, he admitted that he had had a bad trip and he stopped doing it, and he had never even done what he told his audience to do.
Real quick, in that book, Battle for the Marne, William Sargent, right? So there's a paragraph that's removed on the archive.org PDF version where Sargent talks about, I believe it's Leary and, the Time Life guy, I'm sorry, Paul Wasson. They had a bad trip. Like, Wasson had a terrible trip.
Gordon Wasson.
Gordon Wasson, yeah. So he saw that this was really messed up. He promoted it. He did it once in the Alfred book. They cut. I mean, the Sargent book. They cut that
I'll have
out.
to go back and
But-
check that.
Yeah. If you got like, if we're like, I think of the second or third edition, they started cutting it out. But it says immediately that this stuff is like he could see how detrimental it would be
Yeah.
to people.
Well, there's a
And-
book called Atipodora, Aphrodite Backwards, that says if anybody ever discovered this, they should suppress it immediately because it'll destroy the whole of the world. And here we are, since 1957, May 13, and we see it all around us. Signing off from the rim of the world, ladies and gentlemen, the end of episode 206, season 14, number 2. Good night.